Shri Srinath Prabhu Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Mahatma Ki
Jai.
Natakuri Vaishnava Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Namaskar Shri Srinath Thakur Ki
Jai.
Namesake Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopalya Shananda Radha Gandhiri Govardhana Ki
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki
Jai.
Mayapur Dham Ki
Jai.
Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki
Jai.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadramani Ki
Jai.
Kandamai Ki
Jai.
Namai Ki
Jai.
Mukti Devi Ki
Jai.
Madi Tulsi Maharani Ki
Jai.
Samalita Bhakta Vrinda Ki
Jai.
Jai Gaura Vrinda
Hare
Jai Siddhi Prasad Ki
Hare Krishna.
Jai Siddhi Prasad
Hare Krishna.
Jai Siddhi Prasad English or dance? English. Yes. Oh my God. I prefer English myself. We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, entitled The Perfect Society for Social Classes. And we're reading text number 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Samskarayatra Vichina
Samskarayatra Vichina
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Vidyadhyayana Dhanani
Ityadhyayana Dhanani
Vihitani Tvijamanam
Vihitani Dvijanmanam
Janma Karma Vadathanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Kriyascha Srama Chodita
Kriyascha Sarama Chodita
Samskarayatra Vichina
Samskarayatra Vichina
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Vidyadhyayana Dhanani
Ityadhyayana Janani
Vihitani Tvijanmanam
Vihitani Vijanmanam
Janma Karma Vadathanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Kriyascha Srama Chodita
Kriyascha Sarama Chodita
Samskarayatra Vichina
Samskarayatra Vichina
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Vidyadhyayana Dhanani
Ityadhyayana Dhanani
Vihitani Tvijanmanam
Vihitani Vijanmanam
Janma Karma Vadathanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Kriyascha Srama Chodita
Kriyascha Sarama Chodita
Samskarayatra Vichina
Samskarayatra Vichina
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Vidyadhyayana Dhanani
Ityadhyayana Dhanani
Vihitani Tvijanmanam
Vihitani Vijanmanam
Janma Karma Vadathanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Kriyascha Srama Chodita
Kriyascha Sarama Chodita
Samskarayatra Vichina
Samskarayatra Vichina
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Sadvijojo Jakadayam
Ityadhyayana Dhanani
Ityadhyayana Dhanani
Vihitani Tvijanmanam
Vihitani Tvijanmanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Janma Karma Vadhathanam
Kriyascha Srama Chodita
Kriyascha Sarama Chodita Samskarayatra Vichina Samskarayatra Vichina Sadvijojo Jakadayam Sadvijojo Jakadayam Ityadhyayana Dhanani Ityadhyayana Dhanani Vihitani Dvijanmanam Vihitani Dvijanmanam Janma karma vadatanam
Janma karma vadatanam
Kriyascha srama chodita
Kriyascha sarama chodita
Samskarayatara vichinaha
Samskarayatara vichinaha
Sadvijojo jagadayam
Sadvijojo jagadayam
Iyatyayana dhanani
Ijayana dhanani
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Janmakama vadatanam
Janmakarma vadatanam
Kriyascha sarama choditaha
Kriyascha sarama choditaha
Samskarayatra vichina
Samskarayatara vichina
Sadvijojo jagadayam
Sadvijojo jagadayam
Satyayana dhanani
Iyatyayana dhanani
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Janmakarma vadatanam
Janmakarma vadatanam
Kriyascha srama chodita
Kriyascha sarama chodita
Yatra vichina
Samskarayatara vichina
Savijojo jagadayam
Sadvijojo jagadayam
Iyatyayana
Iyatyayana
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Vihitani dvijanmanam
Janmakarma
Janmakarma vadatanam
Kriyascha srama chodita
Samskara,
Samskara
reformatory processes.
Reformatory process
Yatra,
Yatra
wherein.
Wherein
Avicina,
Avicina
without interruption.
Without interruption
Saha,
Saha
such a person.
Such a person
Dvijaha,
Dvijaha
twice born.
Twice born
Ajaha,
Ajaha
Lord Brahma.
Lord Brahma
Jagada,
Jagada
sanctioned.
Sanction
Yam,
Yam
who.
Who
Ija,
Ija
worshipping.
Worshipping
Ajayana,
Ajayana
studies of the Vedas.
Studies of the Vedas
Dhanani,
Dhanani
and charity.
and charity
Charity
Vihitani,
Vihitani
prescribed.
Prescribed
Dvijanmana,
Dvijanmana
of persons who are called twice born.
Persons who are called twice born
Janma,
Janma
by birth.
by birth
Karma,
Karma
and activities.
and activities
Avadatana,
Avadatana
who are purified.
who are purified
Kriyaha,
Kriyaha
activities.
activities
Cha,
Cha
also.
also
Ashrama, Kodita,
Ashrama Chodita
recommended for all the four ashrams.
recommended for all the four ashrams.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Ja.
Those who have been reformed by the Garbhadan ceremony and other prescribed reformatory methods performed with Vedic mantras and without interruption, and who have been approved by Lord Brahma are Dvijas, or twice born. Such Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, purified by their family traditions and by their behavior, should worship the Lord, study the Vedas, and give charity. In this system, they should follow the principles of the four ashrams: brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Purport. After giving a general list of 30 qualifications for one's behavior, Narada Muni now describes the principles of the four varnas and four ashrams. The human being must be trained in the above-mentioned 30 qualities, otherwise he is not even a human being. Then among such qualified persons, the varnashram process should be introduced. In the varnashram system, the first ceremony for purification is Garbhadan, which is performed with mantras at the time of sex for propagating a good child. One who uses sex life not for sensual pleasures, but only to beget children according to the reformatory method, is also accepted as a brahmachari. One should not waste semen on sensual pleasure, violating the principles of Vedic life. Restraint in sex is possible, however, only when the populace is trained in the above-mentioned 30 qualities. Otherwise, it is not possible. Even if one is born in a family of Dvijas or twice born, if they have not followed the reformatory process, he is called a Dvija Bandhu. not one of the twice born, but a friend of the twice born. The whole purpose of this system is to create good population. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when women are polluted, the populace is Varnashankara. And when the Varnashankara population increases, the situation of the entire world becomes hellish. Therefore, all the Vedic literatures strongly warn against creating Varnashankara population. When there is Varnashankara population, the people cannot be properly controlled for peace and prosperity, regardless of great legislative assemblies, parliaments and similar bodies.
Kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Here we are describing the prerequisites for devotional service, you could say. So the earlier verses describe these 30 qualities of personal behavior. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, non-violence, celibacy, and so on and so on. And so here we're going into more like that's personal qualities, and then we're expanding into the society. How do we arrange that? Then Varnashram, right? So then we have the prerequisite for devotional service. Not that it is devotional service in itself, but it's just a nice situation from which you can perform devotional service, because you are not overly disturbed by the material energy. That's the problem with the material world, is that it is disturbing. So we cannot focus on our devotional service because constantly we're being pushed this way, that way by nature around us, by other living entities, or even in most cases by ourselves. So that's why we have this system. It's not, it's seen from a society point of view here, so it says it controls the populace, but actually it's for us, we're not society leaders, so for us it's like kind of an inward thing. We can control ourselves using these things, right? So it's a nice situation that you can use for devotional service. Now, the problem is how to deal properly with this, because we hear that the details can be adjusted, and we're not. Even now, today is the disappearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he went to Valigai to confront the caste brahmanas and gave a speech which later became the paper called Brahmana and Vaishnava, which later actually became the foundation for the Gaudiya Math. So, and his point was that the Brahmanas are glorious because they are establishing all of these principles, and they are guiding the rest of society. They're very pure, they're exemplary, and they are an example to be followed. But the Vaishnava is superior. So because the Vaishnava is focused on devotional service, where these things are secondary, but they're used in the Lord's service, and that's why they have value. Otherwise, if they become primary, it doesn't really matter. It's just a nice material situation rather than a not so nice material situation. It's still material. So it's just nice demon rather than not so nice demon. It's actually, you could argue that it's actually worse, because you're regulated so you can get up to more nonsense, like Hiranyakashipu. This is the canto of Hiranyakashipu. very Vedic and he's very, mode of goodness, but he's just not exactly using it for devotional service. So he can create a lot of trouble. So people like us, we don't create so much trouble because we don't have that piety, right? So that's the difference. That if you look at it as I'm a Brahmana, then you're looking at the piety of it. But if you're looking at it, I'm a Vaishnava, then you're looking at the devotion. So actually, piety, if it's not connected to Krishna, it's actually sinful. So piety is sinful. That's quite a funny thing. But it is, because you're seeing it as separate from Krishna. So this Bhagavatam can show us two things. It can show us it can show us more, but basically two things. How to develop love of God, or how to enjoy the material energy. Because if you follow these principles for enjoyment, it will work out as good as it can, Of course, in the end it will still be a problem, because it's not Krishna conscious. So that's the thing we need to always keep in mind, is that until we have actually made the sincere connection to Krishna, it's still useless. So it can be so much trouble and so much austerity and so much all these things, but if we don't actually connect it to Krishna, truthfulness, mercy, austerity, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination, and so on, and positioning ourselves nicely in Varnashram and these things, if we don't actually do it for Krishna, it's still demonic, So that's the problem with us. We're not trained in this. It says very direct, Prabhupada is very direct. A human being must be trained in the above mentioned 30 qualities, otherwise he is not even a human being. So technically we're not human beings. We may be in a human form, but we're not actually on the human platform because we haven't been trained in these things. Lucky for us, because it's Kali Yuga, there's always a balance. So because of Kali Yuga, there's added mercy. So then we can use that added mercy to develop love of God anyway, even though we're not on the human platform, because love of God is transcendental. So transcendental means it's not affected by time, place, and circumstance. So it doesn't matter. You can be in an animal body, right? So the Mahaprabhu was chanting and dancing with the animals in the jungle, and they were liberated. So Jad Bharat or Bharat Maharaj, he took birth as a self-realized deer. So the material form is not actually. It doesn't. See, I was almost going to say it's not important, but that's not the case, because that's the point I'm getting at. It doesn't control the situation, but it is important because we are trying to develop love of God. We don't have it yet, so we should be careful, because what usually is happening is when we hear that the Vaishnava is above all these things, then we think, oh, that means it doesn't actually apply to me. I can do whatever I want, or I don't have to follow these rules because I'm a Vaishnava, so I'm beyond all these things. That's not the case. The case with the Vaishnava is that the Vaishnava position encompasses all of these things and more. So it goes beyond. It's not that it leaves all the Brahminical qualities and goes beyond. No, it goes there and beyond. So the Brahminical qualities are engaged in Krishna's service, and that's why it's beyond. So Krishna says he carries what we lack and preserves what we have. So whatever good qualities we have is safe, and whatever shortcomings we have, it'll work out anyway if our motives are pure, right? Then, because that's basically what Krishna looks at. He understands our situation. We haven't been trained like this. We are basically animals in a human form, if you could say so. And that's all right if you're sincerely trying, right? Like the example of the child trying to bake a cake for its mom. It may not turn out very well. He may switch the dose of sugar for the dose of salt or whatever happens, and it's inedible, but it's still a nice offering for the mommy because she knows that the child is doing its best, right? So then if the husband does the same, it's not so good because that you would expect more from the husband. He's 40 years old, he should know better. So we have to adjust to where we are. As long as this effort is sincere, then the result is not actually something we need to worry about. But the problem is that sometimes the effort is not so sincere. We have a tendency to cut corners. We have a tendency to, we have four defects basically, imperfect senses. We're an illusion. We have the tendency to cheat. And what's the fourth one?
Imperfect sense.
I think I started with that one.
Make mistakes.
Yeah, we make mistakes. So it'll always come up. So then that's why we need these externals, right? Does that make sense? That the externals themselves don't have a value. They only have the value that they'll keep us sort of in check when we're trying to perform devotional service. So then saying that they're not important or can be adjusted is true, but we should be very careful when we do it, because what is actually our motivation of doing it? Because we have an artist, and the reason we have an artist is because we don't see them as such, right? Because an artist means an unwanted desire. If we saw it as an unwanted desire, we wouldn't have it, right? So like most of us are not drug users, right? So that's because we see it as an anartha. We see like using drugs is not really that practical in terms of spending your time in a human form. It's not really going to help you. But I used to indulge in stuff like that, and we thought it was great, and oh, come on, relax, have a little fun. It's not even worse than alcohol and stuff. You come up with all sorts of explanations why you think it's pretty good. It's not actually that bad. And so we don't have these maybe so gross ones, but we have more subtle ones, either to do with etiquette, actually to do with all these 30 qualities we have here. Maybe the cleanliness, we think, don't be a fanatic. That's what we hear sometimes, don't be fanatic. We're just being practical. Tolerance, well, I'm tolerant. It's just that you are tolerant, So that's always when someone's being intolerant. They always think that someone else is being intolerant to them. I'm just reacting naturally. So that's why it's an anartha, because we're not aware of it. We're not actually aware that we're doing it. So that's why we need these things, and we should be very careful when we are quote-unquote adjusting the details, because what is devotional? It's made up of details. There is only details. The principle is love of God, but how is that expressed? Through details. You don't express devotional service through principles. The principle is just the principle. That's Krishna. So that's why he expands, because the principle himself is without value. It's super boring just hanging there being Atmarama. So you expand to have some fun, so that there's value, so there's activity, so there is lila. So that is all made up of details. So when we say, no, that's just a detail, that is a very dangerous position to take, because everything is just a detail. Chanting Hare Krishna is just a detail. It's a very important detail, but it's still a detail. So the details are important. The detail